Well, good morning, America Bivens. We interrupt your programming with this special report. President Joe Biden making a stop in northern Kentucky today. That's where we find ABC 36's Paxton Boyd at the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport, standing by live with more on that busy day ahead. Paxton, help us set the scene. Tell us more about this visit today.
Yeah, Erica, President Biden landing here at the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport just moments ago. That plane set to make its way around here, and here is where he will meet Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and Senator Mitch McConnell, who are standing by. That's when they'll make their way to Covington, and that's where the president is set to give his remarks. I'll step out of the way here. Maybe we can see that plane making its way around. Doesn't look like it's visible just yet. But the president expected to make his way to Covington to talk about the new Brent Spence Bridge project. That bridge, of course, connecting Cincinnati to northern Kentucky. The president's visit coming just days after $1.6 billion in federal funding was approved for the project. Now, it's part of a nearly $1 trillion the Biden administration is doling out for roads and bridges, broadband networks, and water projects across America, not only to help communities there, Erica, but also the president feels this will help voters who want to see bipartisanship and tangible results.
And we talk a little bit more about the funding here. The grant to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, it's going to fund improvements to that bridge, which, if folks don't know, is currently the second worst truck bottleneck in the entire country. It carries more than $400 billion in freight per year over the Ohio River. And of course, that project will separate I-75 traffic from local traffic, hoping to make those commutes between Kentucky and Ohio just a lot faster and also improve freight passage along what's just a critical corridor. Now, improvements to the bridge will also address delays in the movement of freight that currently raise costs for American families. You can see on your screen here, it looks like the president's Air Force One is now in sight. It's on the tarmac there as Paxton tells us more about what is happening out there as the folks start to gather, no doubt, in the tarmac area. Paxton?
Yeah, Erica, as you just mentioned, you can see Air Force One starting to make its way around here. Touchdown just a couple of minutes ago and is set to make its way over in this direction. Standing by is Republican Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, Democratic Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky. We're told Senate Majority Republican leader Mitch McConnell is by here as well. The president will meet with them and then make his way to Covington. That's where he will give his remarks on the Brent Spence Bridge project. Of course, Eric, as you just touched on, that bridge notoriously known for being congested. This project is meant to help unclog some of that traffic. The bridge was declared functionally obsolete by the Federal Highway Administration as far back as the 1990s, and since then it's really become a symbol of the nation's crumbling infrastructure, with presidents from both sides of the aisle, really, Barack Obama and Donald Trump most recently, expressing concern about that bridge. The span of that bridge was designed for about 80,000 vehicles per day, but is easily doubling that. So this could really be a feather in the president's cap to, get out here and really boast his accomplishments as he is set to make his way to Covington here soon.
Absolutely. And we know Governor Beshear talked about the president's visit yesterday. We want to share some of that with you right now.
This is a project that multiple presidents have promised, that's been up in Washington for a long time. What it's going to mean to the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati community, but all of Kentucky, all of Ohio, and all of the country is pretty special. And it's going to continue this economic growth, job growth that we are seeing, that I think is going to continue long after inflation has subsided.
Of course, we know Governor Beshear is giving the State of the Commonwealth address tonight at 7 Eastern. That's happening in Frankfort at the state capitol. So it's interesting to hear his remarks yesterday about this visit. Also, we can tell you this is President Biden's first domestic trip just this year. He was here, of course, during all of the flooding in eastern Kentucky, as well as those tornadoes in western Kentucky. And we did hear from President Biden. He had a chance to speak to national media earlier today ahead of that departure. And he has more on the visit. Here it is right now.
And the one thing I'm going down to Kentucky and Ohio today is to demonstrate we can get things done. We passed an enormous bill, bipartisanly, and it worked. And we're starting off the first major initiative we're announcing today is $1 billion. You can't be the #1 economy in the world unless you have the #1 infrastructure in the world.
And Paxton, I know you touched on this a little bit, but Biden clearly using this as an opportunity to send a message to folks that despite that newly divided Congress that was just sworn in yesterday, that Biden can in fact work across the aisle and make that bipartisan effort in all of this.
Yeah, absolutely, Erica. The White House, as of yet, has not specifically said why the president picked the Brent Spence Bridge as a stop on the national tour to talk about his infrastructure and jobs plan. But that being said, this bridge is obviously one of the biggest projects in that plan. But perhaps more importantly, as you just mentioned, Erica, this has largely been a bipartisan effort. The bridge connects Ohio, which of course has a Republican governor, and Mike DeWine, and Kentucky with a Democratic governor and Andy Beshear, both of them who have supported this project along with senators on different sides of the aisle. Both Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, both Governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear are here in attendance, standing by, waiting for the president to get off of Air Force One here. That's when they will meet and begin their trip to Covington, where the president is set to make his remarks there.
And we can tell you a little bit more about that funding, too. As part of the selection process, remember, this is for the first round of grants. Priority consideration was given to projects ready to proceed to construction, as well as those that require pre-construction funding and would benefit from a multi-year grant agreement. The bipartisan infrastructure law is making the single largest dedicated investment in highway bridges, nearly $40 billion over 5 years since the construction of the interstate highway system, with again nearly $2.4 billion available in fiscal year 2022 from the Bridge Investment Program, which of course complements that $5.3 billion announced earlier this year for states under the Bridge Formula Program. So all of this sort of setting the scene for the president's visit today, Paxton.
Yeah, as you can see, Air Force One pulling in here, the president landing about a little under 10 minutes ago and making his way towards the tarmac here. Excuse me, it is loud. I'm not even sure if you can hear me here, but the president set to meet with Ohio Republican Governor Mike DeWine, Kentucky Democratic Governor Andy Beshear. We're told Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is here as well. The president will meet with them before heading to Covington. That's where he'll make his remarks about the project regarding the Brent Spence Bridge, Erica.
And Paxton, sort of where you're at, do you have any visual of Senator McConnell right now or either of the governors out there?
We did see Governor Beshear walk up. Right now they are behind some vehicles where we can't get a direct view of them, but we have been told, we do have confirmation that Governor Beshear is here standing by. Governor Mike DeWine is here as well. And again, I have been told by officials here, Mitch McConnell is here as well, and they will meet with President Biden here shortly once he makes his way off of Air Force One.
And of course, we want to remind people that tonight Governor Beshear is going to be back in Frankfurt giving that State of the Commonwealth address that starts at 7 Eastern. That will be live streamed on the governor's social media pages. We will have a recap of that speech coming up tonight at 11 for you right here on ABC 36 for anyone who is interested in hearing more about those remarks. No doubt, Paxton, Governor Beshear is going to be talking about this visit by the president tonight during that address.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this bridge, part of a $1.6 billion in federal funding that was approved for this project, part of a $1 trillion effort that the Biden administration is doling out for roads, bridges, broadband networks, water projects, things of that nature, all across the country, not only to help communities there, but Erica, as we mentioned earlier, this is largely a bipartisan effort. The president feels this will help sort of accommodate and please voters who really want to see bipartisanship. People reach across the both aisles to work together to get things done and really see tangible results here. And again, Governor Beshear tweeting out earlier today, the Brent Spence companion bridge funding is a nonpartisan achievement for our Commonwealth and our country. He says, it gives me pride that leaders will be standing together today, showing the world what we can accomplish when we put politics aside and do what's best for our people. So that right there pretty much tells you all that you need to know. This is a bipartisan effort that was really the result of both sides coming together to get this done, Erica.
Certainly a very important message out there. For folks just tuning in, again, this is live coverage from the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport. Our Paxton Boyd is live on the ground there as President Biden is getting set to deplane Air Force One. Of course, we have the welcoming committee that was set to meet the president today when he gets off of the plane. Again, that is going to be Senator Mitch McConnell, along with Governor Andy Beshear from Kentucky and Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine. No doubt there are other local and state officials that will be joining and shaking hands out there as well today, Paxton.
Right, and you can see the media getting off of the plane right now, getting off of Air Force One, making their way around. Steps have been brought out. Looks like President Biden is set to make his way off of Air Force One. Again, you see these cars pulling up, media deplaning now. And that's really the scene. Looking over to my right here, I can see Governor Andy Beshear walking towards the plane where he will meet Governor Beshear. And as you mentioned, lots of local leaders here. Here's Governor Beshear and his children, his wife Brittany, walking up, set to greet the president as he deplanes Air Force One. Of course, like you said, lots of local leaders here as well. Here's Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell here trailing as well, also set to meet the president as he makes his way off of Air Force One. And as you mentioned, local leaders here as well. The Cincinnati governor, Ohio governor Mike DeWine here as well, set to greet the president as he deplanes Air Force One here in just a bit.
And not the president's first visit to the area. Of course, President Biden was here during the historic flooding that was over the summer in eastern Kentucky. He had a firsthand look at all the devastation there. He was also in western Kentucky following the devastating and deadly tornadoes that we saw there as well. So President Biden very familiar with the area. So it'll be interesting to see his take today when he goes over to the Brent Spence Bridge. Paxton, that is again where everyone will be heading after this visit, correct?
Yes, that's right. Again, that bridge connecting Cincinnati to northern Kentucky. And Erica, as you mentioned earlier, that bridge is notoriously known for being congested. This project is meant to help unclog some of that traffic. That bridge was actually declared functionally obsolete by the Federal Highway Administration as far back as the 1990s. And since then, many presidents, including Barack Obama and Donald Trump, have expressed interest and concern in getting that bridge fixed. So this really could be a feather in the cap of President Biden here today as he makes those remarks in Covington by that bridge. Again, that bridge was designed for about 80,000 vehicles per day, and officials say it's nearly doubling that. So this reconstruction project, which is expected to be completed by 2029, is well overdue. But that's another point here, Erica. Construction expected to go on until 2029, maybe even 2030, and it does have a lot of local businesses concerned about the traffic that will be blocking around that area. So that's another area that we need to focus on here as well. But looks like President Biden set to make his way off of Air Force One here shortly. Again, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell standing by, Governor Andy Beshear, his wife Brittany, and two children standing by as well. Media has made their way off the plane as we await President Biden's arrival.
And we did hear from President Biden just moments ago before he departed from Washington, D.C. He was talking to national media this morning, sort of about this visit, what's ahead, what he plans to address. We know Biden is definitely going to use this as an opportunity to send a very clear message to folks that despite that newly divided Congress, that he can work across the aisle and accomplish that bipartisan legislation. We know just yesterday they had the historic swearing in of the 118th Congress. Senator Mitch McConnell, a part of that yesterday, which was a very big ordeal. And again, McConnell is showing that he is working across the aisle in all of this as well. When you see Republicans and Democrats coming together to accomplish this just massive legislation, that certainly shows, Paxton, the bipartisan legislation that folks can work across the aisle in all this to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. This bridge, one of the biggest projects in President Biden's reconstruction plan. And again, it's largely been a bipartisan effort. The bridge connects Ohio with a Republican governor and Mike DeWine, Kentucky with a Democratic governor and Andy Beshear. So you see the symbolism there as President Biden is making his way off of Air Force One right now, Erica.
We can see him departing the plane. Again, he certainly has that welcoming committee that will be there to meet him. Looks like they're making some eye contact here. We have Kentucky Governor, of course, Andy Beshear that is there. We have, let's see who is greeting President Biden first. It appears that we have Senator Mitch McConnell in the shot as well. He's sort of behind the vehicle, so we can't quite see who he's shaking hands with, but again, we imagine that is Governor Beshear or perhaps Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine that are set to greet him. I see Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown there in the scene as well. But a lot of local, a lot of state officials that are all part of this, no doubt a ton of security there, and national media that has also traveled down from D.C. with the president. And there you can see President Biden shaking hands with Senator Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, Erica. Of course, that vehicle directing our blocking our direct sight. But yeah, that was Governor Beshear, who President Biden made his way to directly after making his way off of Air Force One, walking over directly to Governor Andy Beshear, his wife Brittany, and 2 children, greeting them, and then making his way over to Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who he's speaking with right now, as you can see. But yeah, national media here deboarding Air Force One. You see the president greeting Mitch McConnell, Governor Andy Beshear. Again, Governor Mike DeWine is here, believed to be here as well, and the president will meet with them before heading to Covington, and that's where he will make his remarks regarding the project on the Brent Spence Bridge.
Certainly a busy day for the president. Again, this is not his first visit to Kentucky, although we can tell you this is President Biden's first domestic trip this year. So it's interesting to see that he is making his way back here to Kentucky and Ohio as well, since we're talking about the Brent Spence Bridge project. Of course, that crosses the Ohio River, connecting both of those states together. Biden, though, here last year when we had the historic flooding over the summer, and again in western Kentucky for those deadly tornadoes. So he is very familiar with the state, really on all parts of Kentucky. And so it'll be interesting, again, Paxton, to hear what he has to say about this bridge project. I mean, this is a historic funding effort here when we talk about that bipartisan effort. And we know that he's probably trying to use this as an opportunity to speak and reach out to his constituents about that newly divided Congress, that he can, in fact, despite that, work across the aisle and get all of this legislation done in a bipartisan effort.
Right, and I do believe that's the biggest message that he's trying to send here today. You see the camaraderie, the bipartisanship here as, President Biden speaking with Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. Symbolic of the effort that it took to get this done, Erica. This visit coming just days after the $1.6 billion price tag in federal funding approved for this project. Again, part of a $1 trillion effort that the Biden administration is doling out to fix roads and bridges, broadband networks, water projects all across America to help these communities and really satisfy voters who are longing to see that bipartisanship after this nation has been so divided over the past several years. But President Biden looking to show voters tangible results. He believes that he can do that with projects like the Brent Spence Bridge, one that's notoriously known for being congested. This project, of course, meant to relieve some of that traffic, unclog some of that congestion over that bridge, one that's really been a point of concern for Cincinnati residents and Northern Kentuckians for decades now.
It appears Senator Mitch McConnell there is getting back into a vehicle as he perhaps gets ready there to make his way to the next stop. We'll see if President Biden joins him in that vehicle or if perhaps he will be going in a separate vehicle. We do know that, of course, Governor Beshear talked about this visit yesterday. I want to read you some of that quote that he told media. He was saying that this is a project that multiple presidents have promised that has been up in Washington for a long time. And what this is going to mean for the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati community, but all of Kentucky and all of Ohio and all over the country is pretty special. This is going to continue the economic growth, job growth that we are seeing that I think is going to continue long after inflation is subsided. So again, that was Governor Beshear's quote yesterday when he was talking about the president's visit today. President Biden also talking to national media again earlier today before he left from D.C. to make his trip on Air Force One to Northern Kentucky. Again, this is just a incredible bipartisan effort, and it's so interesting to see that folks are definitely able to reach across the aisle to make something this big happen out there, Paxton.
Right, you talk about that tremendous bipartisan effort. Another sign of that looks like President Biden and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell have gotten into the same vehicle. Looks like that motorcade is about to take off where it'll make its way to the Brent Spence Bridge project in Covington. That motorcade taking off here, and this car right here is the one that President Biden and Republican Senator Mitch McConnell have gotten in. The motorcade set to take his way off where they will receive this police escort all the way up to Covington. And again, that's where President Biden will give his remarks regarding the Brent Spence Bridge project. Erica.
It was certainly a pretty quick touchdown, land, get off the plane and shake some hands, meet with local officials there before they head on their road to the next site there. Again, this is President Biden's visit here in Northern Kentucky. He is in that first vehicle there. You can still see him in the shot after Air Force One touched down just about 25 minutes ago. President Biden joined by Senator Mitch McConnell, along with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. All of them now heading to their next location, Paxton.
Yeah, that's right. Like you said, pretty short and sweet. The motorcade was right by Air Force One. Pretty quick turnaround here as they board that motorcade and are set to take off and make their way to Covington here. Excuse me. Again, always a great sight to see, the Air Force One, the president here in Northern Kentucky. Again, like you mentioned, Erica, he was here over the summer after that historic flooding in eastern Kentucky. Here he is again to boast his accomplishments and bipartisan efforts in getting this tremendous project done. Again, $1.6 million price tag on the Brent Spence Bridge, and it's a project that people here in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky have been longing to see for quite some time, one that they wanted to get done. So certainly a feather in the president's cap here today as he will make his way to Covington to, talk about that bipartisan effort that it took to get this effort done and also give him a chance to boast on his accomplishments here.
And Paxton, walk us through the rest of the president's visit today. It's a pretty lengthy one considering that he has just landed about 25 minutes ago, and he's going to be in Kentucky essentially until mid this afternoon, right?
Again, yes, he's making his way to Covington. That's where he will give his remarks about the Brent Spence Bridge project. He's joined by Governor Andy Beshear, who you saw here just a moment ago, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. Again, they're making their way to Covington now. That's where he will meet with local leaders, including the Cincinnati mayor, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, again, many other local leaders there to talk about this project. And President is scheduled to depart the CVG airport at about 3:15 this afternoon, Erica.
Again, if you're just tuning in, President Biden in Northern Kentucky today. He is going to be making his way out to the Brent Spence Bridge over the Ohio River, talking about that massive bipartisan legislation and the funding effort to make it all possible to help out the bridge and no doubt the congestion out there. Our Paxton Boyd has been live with coverage all morning. Thank you so much, Paxton, for that. Thank you for tuning in for the president's visit today. We'll have much more on News at Noon and throughout the day on ABC 36. Thank you for watching. Now back to your regular programming.
Should be your style.